At the beginning of the Infinity Castle arc, we see Kamado Tanjiro falling onto the ground of the building. However, he is unable to correct his posture in time to avoid the crash. Just then, Gyu helps him by grabbing him from behind. As Tanjiro starts thanking him, demons suddenly attack from the other side. At that moment, Gyu and Tanjiro slice them up simultaneously before quickly moving to the next location. Meanwhile, we see Obanai protecting Mitsuri from demons. On the other side, Himejima and Tokito are running through the Infinity Castle, talking about how grateful they are to Ubuyashiki. They also express their anger and determination to take revenge on Muzan. Meanwhile, Sanemi sits on the ground in disbelief. As demons start entering his location, he furiously slashes them down, tears streaming down his face as he promises to get his revenge. Elsewhere, Zenitsu, Inosuke, Genya, and Shinobu are running in different directions. However, Shinobu has the worst luck. She ends up facing Upper Moon 2, Doma, all alone. As he sees her, he smirks and mockingly says that he needs to thank Nakimi for sending a girl to his place. Shinobu begins remembering her sister's final wish, where she asked Shinobu to leave the demon slayers and find happiness like any other girl. However, Shinobu refuses, promising her sister that she will take revenge because she can't live knowing the one who did this to her is still out there. She then starts asking her sister to describe the demon who did this, and as her sister describes him, Shinobu immediately realizes that the demon in front of her, Upper Moon 2, Doma, is the one she's been searching for. As Doma begins to introduce himself, a woman starts crying out for help. When Doma attempts to silence her, Shinobu intervenes, saving her from his attack, but it's already too late. Doma then reveals his weapon, a pair of sharp fans, and continues his introduction, asking Shinobu if anything is bothering her. That's when Shinobu, for the first time, shows an angry expression and tells him that he's the one who killed her sister. When Doma recalls her sister, Shinobu attacks him, aiming for his left eye. However, Doma mocks her, saying she needs to cut off his head instead. At that moment, Doma feels something strange. Shinobu had poisoned him with her first attack, but he's able to decompose the poison. He smirks, telling her that this fight is going to be fun. After Shinobu tries 5 different poisons on the Upper Moon demon, Doma, none of them work because he can genuinely decompose every poison she uses on it. That's when Shinobu attacks him again, causing Doma to comment that she's fast, probably the fastest Hashira he's ever met. However, Shinobu is hit at the same time, losing a lot of blood. Doma laughs at her, telling her that she should just aim for his head instead of using poison. Shinobu begins to blame herself for being so tiny and not being able to grow any taller, thinking that her sister knew she couldn't win against him but didn't tell her. As she starts crying, her sister appears in front of her, urging her to push forward. Even when Shinobu makes excuses, her sister tells her to stand up, to do whatever it takes to win, and to fulfill the promise she made to her and Kanao. With renewed resolve, Shinobu stands up and faces Doma. He questions whether she's human, as normal people wouldn't get up after receiving so many slashes. But Shinobu uses her breath technique to move swiftly in all directions, making it difficult for Doma to read her attack. In that moment, Shinobu strikes from below, pushing Doma into the wall and aiming for his neck. Shinobu begins remembering her past, how a demon killed her parents and tried to kill her as well. However, Himejima arrived in time and hunted down the demon. It was then that Shinobu realized there were people willing to protect others' happiness from demons. She made the decision to join the Demon Slayer Corps as a promise to help others. We return to the present moment where Shinobu aims for Doma's neck. As she attacks, she remembers when Tanjiro asked her if she was angry. The truth is, she was. Her parents, sister, and students all died because of demons, and because of that, she cannot accept them. Once again, Shinobu fails to cut off Doma's head, and the poison doesn't work either. She collapses to the ground. Doma hugs her, mocking her, as he tells her she's better than her sister and that she worked so hard. Just then, Kanao arrives, but it's too late. Doma begins absorbing Shinobu into his body, and she screams as she attacks him. However, Doma overpowers her and continues to absorb her. This triggers Kanao's anger. Meanwhile, on the other side, Zenitsu finally finds what he's been searching for, the Upper Moon 6, Kaigaku. While Tanjiro and Gyu are searching for Muzan's location in the Infinity Castle, the building tries to separate them, but they remain together. However, a crow arrives to inform them that Shinobu is dead after her battle with Upper Moon 2. Tanjiro is shocked and starts crying, while Gyu continues analyzing the surroundings, focused on their mission. For the first time, we see the new Ubuyashiki heir, along with his 2 sisters, managing the battle behind the scenes, giving orders to the demon slayers. Meanwhile, we return to Zenitsu, who is facing Upper Moon 6, Kaigaku. As they begin talking, Zenitsu asks Kaigaku why he chose to become a demon. He also brings up how their grandfather ended his life after learning that his student Kaigaku turned into a demon. However, Kaigaku doesn't care at all. In fact, he seems pleased about it. This response triggers Zenitsu, and he begins disrespecting Kaigaku. In retaliation, Kaigaku attacks Zenitsu using both his breath and blood demon art techniques. But Zenitsu is quick, appearing behind Kaigaku and slashing him without Kaigaku even realizing it. Zenitsu calls him trash and glares at him with a serious expression, something that makes Kaigaku realize that Zenitsu has become a completely different person. As the battle between Kaigaku and Zenitsu continues, Kaigaku gains the upper hand. He dominates the fight. Zenitsu begins to fall through the Infinity Castle, his vision blurring. In that moment, memories from his past resurface when he was just a student. He remembers how Kaigaku always hated him, and although Zenitsu felt the same, deep down, down, he still respected Kaigaku from the bottom of his heart. He acknowledges that Kaigaku was special and important to their grandfather as well. Zenitsu decides that this is where their paths must finally diverge. He whispers a quiet apology to his former brother-in-arms. With newfound resolve, Zenitsu unleashes a technique never seen before, the seventh form of thunder breathing. In an instant, he beheads Kaigaku, so fast that Kaigaku doesn't even see it coming. As his severed head falls, Kaigaku refuses to accept this ending. He bitterly claims that their grandfather must have had a favorite, a student he secretly taught a hidden technique to. However, Zenitsu, falling to the ground as the poison begins to take over his body, responds, "My grandfather wasn't that kind of person," he says. "This technique, I created it myself, hoping that one day I could fight alongside him." As both Zenitsu and Kaigaku falling inside the Infinity Castle, Kaigaku refuses to accept that Zenitsu was able to create a new thunder-breathing technique, and, even worse, that he lost to him. However, Yushiro arrives at the scene, mocking Kaigaku for dying alone against someone he always considered weak. Yushiro rushes to save Zenitsu. At that moment, Zenitsu finds himself in a vision where he meets his grandfather. He immediately apologizes for what happened to Kaigaku, believing that his grandfather must hate him for it. But his grandfather simply calls his name and tells him that he is his pride and joy. We then see Yushiro and the Kakushi working tirelessly to heal Zenitsu. Yushiro explains to him that Kaigaku was a newly turned upper moon and had not yet mastered his blood demon art, making Zenitsu incredibly lucky to have won the fight. Meanwhile, Kamado Tanjiro continues searching for Muzan when suddenly Akaza appears. At the same time, we see Muzan transforming into a massive ball of flesh, absorbing Tamayo into his body. Trapped and helpless, Tamayo clings to the hope that someone will come to save her and take Muzan down, but no one arrives. When one of the Ubuyashiki girls begins crying, mourning her family that was murdered by Muzan, the new Ubuyashiki leader firmly tells her to stop crying and focus on winning the battle. Meanwhile, Tengen and Rengoku's father stand guard, protecting the remaining Ubuyashiki family members from demons. Elsewhere, Urokodaki watches over Nezuko as she sleeps, ensuring she is safe from Muzan. Sweat pours from her body as she endures the immense pain caused by the medicine that is meant to turn demons back into humans. Urokodaki senses that this will be the final battle, one that will determine the fate of the Demon Slayer Corps. Back on the battlefield, Tanjiro swiftly dodges Akaza's attack and slices off his left hand. Akaza retaliates, launching another strike, but Tanjiro evades once more and slashes his head. Gyu watches in awe, realizing just how much Tanjiro has grown, his skills now rivaling even the strongest warriors. Akaza, unfazed, acknowledges that Kyojuro Rengoku was right about how strong Tanjiro can become. He declares that he will show his respect by fighting, seriously activating his blood demon art. Gyu and Tanjiro start attacking the Upper Moon 3 Akaza at the same time, but he easily dodges their moves. And when Akaza lunges at Tanjiro, Gyu swiftly slices off his hand. Akaza regenerates instantly and delivers a powerful kick to Tanjiro's face, sending him flying away. Then he turned to Gyu and asks for his name, but Gyu coldly refuses, stating that he hates demons just as much as he hates talking, and continue fighting, but Akaza persists, continuing to ask for his name before suddenly kicking him away. Turning his attention back to Tanjiro, Akaza engages him in battle while reminiscing about Kyojuro Rengoku. He claims that it was a blessing that Rengoku died that night because he would never have been able to grow any stronger, and that what make Tanjiro, filled with rage, yells at Akaza to shut up. However, Akaza continues speaking, expressing his disdain for the weak and how they make him vomit. Tanjiro firmly declares that the strong must protect the weak, and the weak must become stronger to protect those even weaker than themselves. While Akaza's expression darkens as he grows visibly enraged by Tanjiro's words for a reason that we will find out. As Akaza grows furious over Tanjiro's words, a mysterious voice suddenly echoes behind him, repeating exactly what had angered him moments ago. Instinctively, Akaza swings his fist to attack, but there is no one there. Tanjiro watches in confusion as Akaza punches the empty air, his rage intensifying. Enraged, Akaza refocuses on Tanjiro and launches a relentless assault. Akaza dominates the fight, overwhelming Tanjiro with his speed and power. Desperate to find a way to reach him, Tanjiro begins thinking of a new strategy. When he finally executes the dance of the fire god, his blade barely grazes Akaza's neck, even though Akaza had managed to dodge the attack. Meanwhile, Senjuro prays for Tanjiro and his late father while writing a letter about the deep connection between Yoriichi and the Rengoku family, but the letter has yet to reach Tanjiro, as the battle has already begun. Akaza grabs Tanjiro's sword and attempts to snap it in half. Tanjiro retaliates with a fierce headbutt and a powerful kick, but Akaza refuses to let go. Just then, Gyu re-enters the fight. Gyu finally awakens his Demon Slayer mark, and as he attacks, he manages to cut a small portion of Akaza's neck. Akaza quickly realizes that Gyu's speed has significantly increased since the mark appeared, but he refuses to back down and continues the fight. Tanjiro watches in awe, noting that both of them are incredibly fast, yet Akaza is still able to match Gyu's speed. Determined to help, Tanjiro begins analyzing the battle, searching for a way to join the fight effectively. He recalls Akaza's words, which strangely align with Inosuke's explanation explanation of sensing attacks without looking. Inosuke had once told him that when someone tries to harm him, his body instinctively reacts, just like Tanjiro's sense of smell. Inosuke had also mentioned that this ability could be used in two ways, either to detect incoming attacks instantly or to suppress one's presence so that others couldn't sense them. As Tanjiro begins to grasp the concept, he suddenly attacks Akaza from behind. Akaza instinctively stops the attack and attempts to punch Tanjiro away, but this time, Tanjiro dodges effortlessly. At that moment, he finally understands what battle spirit truly means. Tanjiro recalls his father, calm, gentle, never showing anger. He remembers how his father once told him about the Hinokami Kagura, the dance of the sun, and how he could perform it from sunrise to sunset without rest. Even while frail and sick, he never complained. He said it was thanks to a breathing technique that let him move efficiently with almost no effort. One night, his father woke him, sensing something strange in the woods. Tanjiro followed, drowsy, until they encountered a massive bear, twice his father's size. Tanjiro froze, terrified, but his father remained still and calm. Holding only a small axe, he whispered, "I feel sorry for your hunger, but I won't show mercy if you threaten my family." The bear charged, and in a blink, his father beheaded it so fast Tanjiro couldn't even follow the movement. Before returning home, his father said, "Don't forget what you saw tonight." Back in the present, Tanjiro reflects on Inosuke's words and his father's teachings. Then, he unlocks the see-through world. He can now see Akaza's muscles, blood flow, every movement. This time, he'll end it. Tanjiro finally unlocks the see-through world. His vision changes and everything slows down. He can see Akaza's muscles moving and his blood flowing. He understands what Inosuke meant by hiding your fighting intent so no one can read your next move. Gyu keeps fighting Akaza, even though Akaza is much stronger. He tries to land a clean slash, but Akaza breaks his sword and aims a punch at his stomach, the same attack he used to kill Rengoku. Then, in a flash, Akaza's arm is cut off. Tanjiro stands behind him, quiet and focused. That one strike says everything. Akaza is shocked. His whole body screams, because Tanjiro feels different than before. Akaza uses his blood demon art to attack both of them at the same time, but Tanjiro watches it all calmly. Seeing all the movement, Akaza turns to Gyu again, asking him to become a demon instead of dying like Rengoku. But just then, Tanjiro moves. Gyu expects a fast strike, but instead, Tanjiro shouts, "I'm gonna cut off your head, Akaza!" Akaza and Gyu are shocked. In that moment, Akaza realizes he can't feel Tanjiro's battle spirit. He can't see what Tanjiro will do next. And then, Tanjiro's sword cuts through his neck, letting him in shock. After Tanjiro cuts off Akaza's head, Akaza questions why he lacked battle spirit, claiming even babies have some. He tries to reattach his head to regenerate, but Gyu throws his sword, striking Akaza's head to prevent it. As Akaza's head begins to disintegrate, Tanjiro believes the battle is finally over. However, Gyu senses something is wrong. Akaza's body remains standing. Suddenly, Akaza uses his blood demon art, sealing his neck and attacking Tanjiro with a powerful kick that sends him crashing into a wall. While Tanjiro struggles to stay conscious, he reaches his limit and collapses. Akaza approaches to finish him, but Gyu intervenes. However, Akaza quickly overpowers Gyu and turns his focus back to Tanjiro. As Gyu shouts that Akaza must go through him first, Akaza is halted by a memory. He sees a woman from his past crying and begging him to stop. While Gyu struggles to keep fighting Akaza, nearing his limits, Akaza begins to see the vision of a girl he doesn't recognize. As he tries to understand, memories from his past flood in. As a child, Akaza committed crimes like stealing and fighting, desperate to afford medicine for his sick father. However, after being arrested and tortured, he learned that his father had taken his own life, not wanting to live off stolen money and hoping Akaza could live freely. Enraged, Akaza fought and defeated 7 men alone. That's when he met Keizu, a martial arts master who was impressed by his strength and knocked him out in one hit. Keizu took him in, teaching him the Soryu fighting style. Later, Keizu introduced his sick daughter Koyuki and asked Akaza to take care of her while he was away. Akaza agreed and, over time, grew close to her. It was then that he made a promise to protect her no matter what. We see Akaza gently caring for Koyuki, saying it's easy since he once took care of his father. When Koyuki tells him to go see the fireworks, he replies they'll go together next time. There's always another year. She quietly starts crying. Afterward, Keizu entrusts him with the dojo and speaks of people who want the land for themselves. 3 years pass. Akaza turns 18, Koyuki 16, and Keizu asks him to inherit the dojo and marry Koyuki. Akaza, finally understanding his father's words, visits his grave to tell him the good news. But when he returns, he finds Keizu and Koyuki poisoned, killed by those who couldn't beat them in a fair fight. Moments earlier, Koyuki had confessed her love, and Akaza had promised to protect her forever. Now, those words feel empty. In rage, Akaza attacks the nearby Kenjutsu dojo, slaughtering all 67 members with his bare hands. As he wanders, Muzan appears, saying he didn't expect to find a human capable of such destruction. He offers Akaza his blood, challenging him to survive it. Akaza, numb with grief, accepts, becoming a demon who forgot everything, except the need to grow stronger. As the battle nears its end, Akaza realizes he won't reunite with his loved ones if he dies like this. His memories return just as Tanjiro wakes up and yells for him to stop. Tanjiro rushes to strike, but his sword slips from his weak grip, so he punches Akaza with all his strength. Akaza mutters how he hates cowards who poison others, how he stained his master's Soryu style, and disrespected his father's dying wish. He remembers now, the one he wanted to kill was himself. Sensing Akaza preparing the same technique he used against Rengoku, Tanjiro shields Gyu, but instead, Akaza smiles and turns the technique on himself. His body begins to regenerate, but he resists it. It's over, he says. I lost. I want to go to hell like a man. Kneeling, he apologizes to his father and Keizu. Muzan appears, disappointed, but Koyuki enters the vision, thanking him. As tears fall, she says, welcome back, my husband, and Akaza finally fades away in peace. As Akaza burns away holding Koyuki in his arms, Tanjiro breathes out, it's over, before collapsing from exhaustion. Gyu, barely able to stand, sits to rest. A crow soon arrives, announcing that Tanjiro and Gyu have defeated Upper Moon 3. Kokushibo hears the news and remarks that Akaza had the potential to grow much stronger, but he chose to abandon that path, and so he died. Meanwhile, Doma senses Akaza's death. He notices something strange, almost human about it, but quickly dismisses it. Wounded and determined, Kanao faces Doma. He fakes sadness, calling Akaza his best friend. Kanao interrupts him coldly, saying demons can't feel real emotions. She explains how Kanai pitied him, not for his power, but for his emptiness. Mocking him, she asks why someone like him was even born. Doma snaps, calling her a bully, and attacks. But Kanao dodges and slashes his stomach. Surprised, Doma realizes she's faster and stronger now, perhaps even stronger than Shinobu. Kanao begins to realize the overwhelming difference in power between her and Doma, but still refuses to back down. She attacks with all her strength, knowing the odds are against her. Doma, intrigued by her determination, notes that her sharp, precise movements come from her exceptional eyesight and decides to target her eyes. He lunges, but Kanao narrowly dodges, leaping back just in time. Doma quickly takes control of the battle, overwhelming her with speed and precision. Unable to keep up, Kanao struggles to close the distance. Then, in a sudden move, Doma knocks her sword away, leaving her momentarily frozen in shock. He calmly sticks the sword into the ground like a trophy and strikes again, giving her no room to escape. Kanao takes the hit, bloodied but still standing. Just when it seems like she's done for, Inosuke bursts onto the scene with a wild scream, turning the fight into 2 versus 1 and giving Kanao a chance to breathe. Inosuke, with his usual reckless energy, realizes he's facing Upper Moon 2. He grins, thinking that defeating Doma might make him a Hashira. Seeing Kanao bleeding heavily, he asks if she's okay, adding that Shinobu wouldn't be happy to see her like this. But when Kanao looks down in silence, Inosuke understands. Shinobu is gone. Doma calmly confirms it, revealing that he absorbed Shinobu into his body. Inosuke flashes back to how kind she was to him, how gently she cared for him. Fury builds in him, and he roars that he'll make Doma pay. Charging in, Inosuke's wild, unpredictable moves surprise Doma, especially his flexible body. Without realizing it, Inosuke snatches Kanao's sword back from Doma and tosses it to her. Doma counterattacks, but Inosuke, from a distance, slashes his eyes. I aimed for your neck, he says, but I'm still perfecting that move. Even with his arm twisted horribly, Inosuke resets it, completely unfazed. Kanao watches in shock. Doma then removes Inosuke's mask. Puzzled, he remembers that face from somewhere. The Upper Moon, too. Doma is a demon who remembers everything from his past, even after becoming a demon. However, he starts talking about Inosuke's mother, saying she was treated badly by her husband and her own mother, so she run to Doma place. But when Doma healed her, he noticed how kind and beautiful her face looked. Inosuke didn't believe him at first, until Doma sang a song. It was the same song his mother used to sing to him when he was little. Doma says he never planned to kill her. He wanted her to stay with him until she died naturally. But one day, she saw him eating people and realized he was a demon. Scared and heartbroken, Kotoha ran away with Inosuke in her arms. When she reached a cliff with no way out, she dropped Inosuke into the river below to save his life. And that when we see Doma killing her and feeling sorry for Inosuke, thinking he probably gonna die. Hearing all this, Inosuke finally remembers his true mother, and with tears and rage, he promises to show Doma what real hell looks like before ending him. After Doma, the Upper Moon 2, speaks about Inosuke's mother, how unhappy she was with her life and ran away to him. Inosuke, overwhelmed with rage, charges in, while Kanao quietly moves behind Doma, aiming for his neck. Yet Doma still control the fight. Suddenly, he summons an ice clone just as powerful as himself, saying he's too busy after Akaza's death and leaves them to deal with it. Impressed by Inosuke's sharp senses, though he believes he's simply lucky to be born with it as he was raised in forest, Doma creates 5 more ice dolls to ensure their defeat. As both Inosuke and Kanao struggle to fight back before he go away, Inosuke suffers deep slashes and starts to panic, but Kanao urges him to hold on just a little longer, and Doma starts asking himself why she says that as he feels something off. Then, suddenly, Doma's face begins to melt. He stumbles, falling to one knee. In confusion, he sees Shinobu's face with evil smile, meaning she did something to him when he absorbed her. After Doma starts melting, we see a flashback of Shinobu explaining her plan to Kanao. She knew Doma would absorb her, so she filled her body with a strong poison made from wisteria flowers, which weakens demons. She had been doing this for over a year, and by the time of the fight, her body held 37 kilograms of poison, more than enough to work on it. Back in the fight, Doma struggles to heal, and his ice dolls begin to break apart. Inosuke and Kanao rush in to cut his his neck, but Doma uses his blood demon art to push them back. Kanao remembers why Shinobu gave up her life yet still worried and warned her about a special move that could make her go blind. But Kanao doesn't hesitate. She uses the Breath of Flowers, final form, to dodges the ice doll and aims for Doma's neck. Even as her body starts freezing, she keeps going. Inosuke throws his swords into Doma's head, and together, they finally cut off his neck. After Kanao cuts off Doma's head, his body starts to fall apart. He feels nothing. No fear, no regret, not even sadness about dying in such a pathetic way. He still thinks maybe he can regenerate like Muzan or Akaza, but his body keeps crumbling. He remembers how, as a child, his mother killed his father and then poisoned herself. Even then, he didn't feel anything. At 20, he became a demon and lived for many years, but never felt emotions. Shinobu appears, saying she can now rest in peace. Her plan to poison Doma worked, with help from Tamayo. She says everyone is winning, so she doesn't regret working with her. Doma, for the first time, feels something. Love. He asks her to come to hell with him, but her answer is quietly clear. Back in the scene, Inosuke cries after realizing his mother loved him and that Tanjiro was right. In the other way, Kanao looks for any piece of Shinobu's hair. Remembering her sisters and parents, then for the first time Kanao start crying, missing both of them deeply. After Tanjiro and Giyu wins against the Upper Moon 3, Akaza, Tanjiro wakes up to see Giyu start preparing for the next battle. As the crow informs them that Inosuke and Kanao have defeated the Upper Moon 2, Doma, Tanjiro reflects on how everyone is doing an incredible job defeating the Upper Moons one by one, getting closer to defeating Muzan. Meanwhile, in the other side we see Mitsuri and Obanai are facing the Upper Moon 4 Nakimi that already got replaced. Mitsuri attacks, but Nakimi dodges her moves in a way that feels embarrassing. Nakimi tries to separate them, but Mitsuri starts to understand the demon's power. She dodges her and attacks again, but once more, Nakimi dodges her effortlessly. Elsewhere, in the Infinity Castle, Tokido and Himejima are running when suddenly Tokido gets separated from Himejima by Nakami's power, facing alone the strongest of the Upper Moons, Kokushibo, Upper Moon 1. As Tokido faces the Upper Moon 1 and feels fear for the first time, Kokushibo sees through him and asks for his name. Tokito introduces himself, and Kokushibo reveals that Tokido is his descendant from the Tsugikuni family. Shocked, he quickly controls his fear, impressing Kokushibo, and attacks, but he dodges and taunts him, saying the Tsugikuni name has died, though the bloodline lives on in Tokido. Tokido refuses to accept this, activating his mark and unleashing a new technique that surprises Kokushibo, saying he didn't see it before, so it means he created it by himself. Intrigued, Kokushibo unshields his sword and uses the Breath of the Moon's first form to cut off Tokido's arm. Tokito, shocked to see a demon using a original breath technique, stops the bleeding with his hair and attacks again. Kokushibo, impressed, retaliates by pinning Tokido to the wall with his sword, deciding to turn Tokido into a demon. Kokushibo decides to turn Tokido into a demon and stops his bleeding to keep him alive. Meanwhile, Genya hides nearby, scared, holding his shotgun, but suddenly, Kokushibo appears behind him and cuts off his arm. Genya pulls out his sword to fight, but Kokushibo cuts it too. Knowing Genya has eaten demons before, he slices Genya in half, saying he met someone like him before and killed him in the same way. But Genya is still alive, so Kokushibo thinks he'll die for sure if he cuts off his head like any other demon. Then, the most awaited scene happens. Sanemi arrives, protecting his little brother. He says he killed their mother for Genya's sake, so he could live a peaceful, normal life with a family of his own, and he'll make sure no demons will get in his way. Fueled by rage, Sanemi attacks Kokushibo, dodging his strike and releasing his first form. Kokushibo draws while Sanemi mocks him, calling his blade disgusting. As Sanemi dodges Kokushibo's fifth form, he starts analyzing it. He admits he can't even blink after seeing Kokushibo's speed and power. It's no surprise Tokido lost. Kokushibo is not only a demon, but also a master of both blood demon art and the breath technique, and he heals faster than anyone. Sanemi uses his second form, showing off his flexibility, and Kokushibo notes that Sanemi is at his peak. Their clash continues with intense techniques, but Sanemi starts bleeding, showing he's struggling to keep up. Kokushibo unleashes his sixth form and slashes him badly. Sanemi is left bloody, and Kokushibo warns him not to move or his organs might spill out. But then Kokushibo senses something strange. Sanemi starts talking about his rare blood, which is so powerful it makes demons dizzy and drunk. As Kokushibo begins to feel it, Sanemi charges in for a counterattack. Sanemi first noticed his special blood when his demon mother's movement slowed after hitting him. He realized his blood could weaken demons and decided to hunt them alone with reckless plans and luck. One day, he met Kumano, who introduced him to the Demon Slayer Corps. After Kumano died fighting Lower Moon 1, Sanemi became a Hashira. At first, Sanemi hated the Ubuyashiki family, thinking they just gave orders and stayed safe. But when he met Oyakata-sama, he saw his kindness. Oyakata apologized for Sanemi's loss and said he wished he could fight too, but his illness stopped him. Kanai told Sanemi that Oyakata remembers every demon slayer who died. Shocked, Sanemi received a letter from Kumano, saying he wanted to protect those he loved until the end. Sanemi realized he felt the same way about Genya. Back in battle, Kokushibo drives Sanemi's sword into the ground and aims for his neck. Sanemi tries to use his brother's shotgun, but fails. Just as Kokushibo strikes, Sanemi vanishes, and suddenly, Yume, the strongest strongest Hashira, arrives. After Gyomei enters the battle, Kokushibo smiles, saying he hasn't seen someone like him in 300 years. As he gets serious, the air shifts. He throws his chained weapons with precision, surprising Kokushibo. He struggles to use his moon breathing while Gyomei uses his rock breathing second form, trapping him in chains. Unable to break free, he managed to slip, but his hair gets cut, aimed straight for his neck. But he throws his weapons again, showing incredible control. As Kokushibo thinks, the chains wrap around his sword and snap it in half. Both use their breath techniques, shaking the entire area with power. Kokushibo regenerates, but Gyomei gets a slash across his face. He says he wanted to save this power for Muzan, but now he has nothing to lose. His mark appears, and his rage grows even stronger. Tokido breaks free from the sword Kokushibo used to pin him to the wall and stops the bleeding. Genya, still alive, asks him for a piece of Kokushibo's hair that Gyomei managed to cut off. As Gyomei's mark glows, Kokushibo reflects on how he's probably 27, past the usual death limit of 25 for marked demon slayers. He laments that all his strength and effort will vanish tonight, but Gyomei calmly replies that every marked slayer knows this and accepts it. He says how pathetic Kokushibo's opinion is while forcing his worldview on others. Then Gyomei says that Kokushibo did lie about one thing, and that there's one exception. Someone once lived past 25 with a mark. Kokushibo seems shaken. Suddenly, he attacks Gyomei from behind in rage, unleashing wild slashes. Meanwhile, Sanemi finishes healing and awakens his own mark. He jumps into the battle, making it 2 versus 1. Kokushibo is impressed that they use different breaths, but still fight in perfect sync. Tokito helps Genya eat Kokushibo's hair, and he regenerates quickly, feeling the upper moon one Kokushibo's power surge in his blood. Suddenly, he hears Muzan's voice inside his head. Back in the fight, Kokushibo understands that these two are the strongest Hashira, especially Gyomei. Even blindness doesn't weaken him. Kokushibo tries to break Sanemi's sword first, but Sanemi thrusts it into the ground and cuts off some of his hair. Kokushibo is shocked that Sanemi can still move like that, even after taking all those slashes. Even with the mark, Gyomei joins in and slices off Kokushibo's ear. The two Hashira fight in perfect sync, landing blows using both breath techniques and tearing Kokushibo's kimono. Just as they press forward, slashes appear from nowhere. Kokushibo then reveals his sword's true form and gets serious, declaring that once he kills them, defeating the rest of the demon slayers will be easy. As Kokushibo unleashes his sword's true form, he cuts off Sanemi's fingers, and as he panics, fearing he might lose his arms without Gyomei's help, he realizes his rare blood has lost its effect. Meanwhile, Ubuyashiki's daughter asks to send backup, but the boy refuses, trusting them to defeat Upper Moon One. Back to the fight, Kokushibo unleashes his 7th to 10th forms, nearly killing Sanemi, but Tokido saves him just in time. Genya, panicking, wonders how he can help. Then he remembers Tanjiro's words, saying when the strongest clash, they ignore the weakest. Realizing he's unnoticed, Genya takes the chance to shift the battle's outcome. With newfound resolve, Genya makes a bold move. He eats the piece of Kokushibo's sword to help create their path to victory. As the fight with Upper Moon One Kokushibo continues, Gyomei starts to panic, asking how fast Kokushibo can unleash his techniques quickly, as if he knows their next moves before even taking them. So he realizes that he might be seeing something others can't. But by observing closely, Gyomei finally unlock the transparent world too, just like Tanjiro and Kokushibo. At that moment, the 3 Hashiras launch a coordinated attack. While Kokushibo prepares to strike back, Gyomei throws a ball, hitting Kokushibo's hand to stop him, while Sanemi distracts him with his wind techniques. Tokido drives his blade into Kokushibo's stomach. At that moment, he realizes that Tokido and Gyomei can now see the transparent world just like him. As he prepares to attack them, Genya appears behind holding a shotgun that looks like Kokushibo's sword, his eyes and mark now similar too. He recalls Tokido's words who ask him to shoot both of them if needed. He starts to panic, but Genya makes his decision and shot them at the end. As Genya shot them both, the bullet pierces Kokushibo. While he realizes Genya's pressure changed, he ate his sword and hair. Suddenly, a tree appears from Kokushibo's body. It's Genya's blood demon art, inherited from his own cells. Frozen in place, he feels something he hasn't in 400 years. Fear. A flashback begins. 400 years ago, under a blood moon, Kokushibo sees his brother Yoriichi again, now an old man, over 80. Shocked, Kokushibo can't understand how a marked swordsman lived past 25, yet he's still alive. Yoriichi, eyes full of sorrow, says it's heart-wrenching, and Kokushibo prepares to strike if Yoriichi draws his blade towards him. But as Yoriichi takes his stance, the air grows heavy. He warns Kokushibo that he's coming, and in one slash, he managed to cut his neck clean through. Kokushibo regenerates, filled with rage. Yoriichi hadn't lost any speed, his power still terrifying even after 80 long years. Kokushibo prepares for the next strike that Kokushibo definitely know it gonna kill him, but it never comes. Yoriichi dies standing, a normal death of old age. After Yoriichi died standing, Kokushibo realized that if Yoriichi had lived just a few more seconds, he would have died. Knowing the strongest swordsman is gone now, he believed no one could defeat him. Back to the battle, he screams, slashing the Hashira's back. Tokido is cut in half like Gojo, and Genya is slashed at the top, and he generate blades all over his body. However, the Hashira's aims for his head, and Tokito's sword turns red, searing Kokushibo's insides. Sanemi pierces his neck as Genya, while dying, uses a blood demon art to hold Kokushibo still. He tries to cut him in half, but his technique fails. Yume throws his weapon at his head, but it doesn't work. He screams, dodging Yume's second attack with his sword. After that, he realizes his sword techniques aren't coming out because the tree on his back absorbed his blood, and Tokito's red blade that looks like Yorichi's sword burning him inside. In that moment, Sanemi jumps, using his sword to push Yume's weapon down onto Kokushibo's head, as both weapons glow red, and finally, Kokushibo's head is destroyed. After Kokushibo reflects to Yoriichi on how their breathing technique will soon vanish, he remembers how he always smiled, always optimistic, and that's what makes him feel disgust. Back in the fight, after Genya and the Hashira manage to cut off Kokushibo's head, he thinks about how this new generation, without the original sun breathing, still managed to turn their blades red and fight with unorthodox styles. Refusing to lose, he stops his head bleeding. At that moment, Yume yells not to let him go, and to continue slashing him until he vanishes, but he regenerates in a monstrous form, thinking he conquers death now, except the sun, as he sees his reflection in Sanemi's blade, realizing how ugly he's become chasing the perfect form. He remembers how Yoriichi wanted to be the second strongest samurai, just behind him. Then, the part where Muichiro stabbed him begins to crumble, while Sanemi and Yume attack again, destroying his upper body. Struggling to regenerate, Kokushibo begins to give up, realizing, in the end, all he ever wanted was to be like his little brother, Yoriichi. Kokushibo always wanted to be like his twin brother, Yoriichi. At birth, Yoriichi had a strange mark on his head, and their father wanted to kill him, but their mother stopped it. Still, the difference in treatment was clear. Yoriichi lived poorly, yet always stayed close to their mother. One day, Kokushibo gave him a flute, thinking he didn't see him smiling before. Later, while training with a swordmaster, Yoriichi asked to join. The teacher gave him a small wooden sword and showed him the basics. Shockingly, Yoriichi defeated him with just 4 strikes, even though Kokushibo had trained hard and never landed a hit on their master. Yoriichi then said he didn't want to be a samurai. He hated hurting others. When Kokushibo asked how he was so strong, Yoriichi explained to only follows his opponent's bones, muscles, and blood flow, what we now know as the see-through world. At that moment, Kokushibo realized Yoriichi was born with rare talent, his eyes, his mark, but Yoriichi didn't want it. He just wanted to play with his brother. That's when Kokushibo knew the power he desperately wanted was wasted on someone who didn't even want to use it. After Yoriichi defeated their teacher, Kokushibo feared the teacher would report it, and by morning, their father would switch their roles. He started giving up on his dream of becoming the strongest samurai. But at 3 a.m., Yoriichi quietly came to say goodbye, informing him that their mother had passed away and he was leaving now. He showed to Kokushibo the flute he had gifted him long ago, saying it always reminded him of his brother and he'll take care of it all the time, as Kokushibo had given it just like trash, but Yoriichi had treasured it. The next morning, Kokushibo found their mother's diary. He found out that Yoriichi had known of his mother's illness, so he had always stayed by her left side not for comfort but to support and take care of her. As Yoriichi had left that time to protect Kokushibo's position, he continued following his dream. Realizing this, Kokushibo's heart twisted, and from that moment he started hating him, wishing him to disappear forever. After Yoriichi leaves, Kokushibo starts living a peaceful life for 10 years. He gets married and has 2 kids, but he feels bored with this life. One day, Kokushibo and his teammates were attacked by a demon, and Yoriichi appeared, easily defeating the demon. Kokushibo's hate grew again as Yoriichi apologized for being late. However, Kokushibo wanted to be stronger than Yoriichi again, so he abandoned his family and joined the demon hunters. He trained hard, but still couldn't reach Yoriichi's level. When he got the same mark as Yoriichi, he couldn't use the breath of the sun. His technique was named the breath of the moon. Suddenly, all other marked people start dying. Kokushibo knew he didn't have time to catch up, and the golden age of demon hunters will vanish soon. One night, Muzan appears, offering him immortality to perfect his techniques, so he decides to become a demon. Back to the sense when Kokushibo ended Yoriichi's life. He found out that he's still carrying the old flute. He starts crying, realizing that Yoriichi's legacy lives on, while he had abandoned everything, his family, humanity, and dreams. He feels his life was meaningless compared to Yoriichi's enduring his mark and power to Tanjiro, and questioned why he even born hoping for an answer from him. After Kokushibo dies, Himejima orders Sanemi to stop, but he doesn't because he was already passed out. Impressed by his willpower, Himejima moves Sanemi next to Genya, who was cut in half, so Genya could know his brother is alive. He finds Tokito dead, closes his eyes, and promises to defeat Muzan for him so he can rest in peace. In the afterlife, Tokito meets his brother, who cries, calling his death pointless. Tokito cries too, saying he lived happily, fought to protect his friends, and had no regrets. His brother admits he didn't want him to die. Back in the real world, Sanemi wakes up screaming as Genya crumbles away like any demon. Genya confesses his feelings, and Sanemi, crying, says he never hated him and only wanted to protect him. Genya tells him he's the sweetest brother and vanishes. Sanemi screams to God not to take him, while Himejima stands behind him, telling him to raise his head and the fight isn't over until they kill Muzan.